Hey, this is Tom Jacobs from tdjacobs.com. I'm an evolutionary astrologer and also a channel and an energy worker. And at tdjacobs.com, you'll find a bunch of tools to help you in your journey, no matter what phase you're in, including the Chiron Natal Report, which will explain to you house, sign, and aspects in detail, as well as transits and progressions to your Chiron and transits of Chiron to the rest of your natal chart. So this is the first in the series of Chiron and the signs. This is Chiron and Aries. I've already done the series of Chiron in each of the natal houses. We have to differentiate between houses and signs. It's important. The first house is not the same as Aries. In the first house, we're talking about feeling the energy antenna within you when your whole person, your whole sense of being in your body is affected by Chiron. That's the part of life, is the body and your choices and independence and all that kind of stuff. Chiron in Aries, on the other hand, is about assertion. Aries as a sign being a lens through which a planet works. So they're not the same. Just want to be really clear about that. Anyway, the sign of Aries is about new beginnings, and it's about assertion. It's about a defensive response. It's about what you want. It's about reaching out for things, kind of like energetically and also physically. So whenever you physically act on desire, there's something going on with Aries there as well. A planet working through the lens of Aries operates with fire and maybe is reactive and doesn't think before responding. So here we have Chiron, the energy antenna, and you should check out the Chiron overview video as well as the Chiron and energy management videos that I put up before the house videos a few weeks ago to really get a sense of how I work with Chiron, because I do it in a unique way. I take people beyond wounding and healing, because I consider wounding and healing responses to being energetically sensitive. So the Chiron energy antenna in this working through the lens of Aries makes you much more reactive to other people's energy and emotions. This is when you sense somebody's pain, you don't cower and turn inward. You might respond defensively to try to keep that frequency out of your space. You might also rush in, if you're in a healer phase, you might rush in to help people. You might not think before helping. So Aries, planet working through the lens of Aries, experiences what we might call an unmediated response, which is to say doesn't think before it acts. If you know people, or if you have Mercury in Aries, you know that sometimes, foot and mouth disease. You say things without realizing the import or impact, and you might make a fool of yourself. Venus in Aries, you might rush into love. Mars in Aries, you might see threats everywhere or try to compete with everybody. Well, Chiron in Aries says that when you sense that energy from others in the world around you, whether from one individual or from the environment in which you are, you're going to respond defensively by default. Now, it also says this idea of like self-assertion. You're also sensitive to how others respond to you when you assert yourself. So Chiron is a marker of sensitivity, energetic sensitivity, and vulnerability. And so Chiron in Aries says, no matter what your natal Mars is doing, Chiron in Aries says you're going to be very sensitive to the reactions of others when you assert yourself. And just speaking for myself, I have a very strong Mars in the first house, but I have Chiron in Aries in the 7th house. And so there's kind of like this, I might assert myself, and then I'm very aware with Chiron in Aries in the 7th of other people's responses to me. So that will have me edit how fiery I let myself be. So there's a way to understand Chiron and Aries. Now, a lot of people, Chiron just went into Aries over the last month or so, and so people who were born about 50 years ago are starting to have their Chiron and Aries returns now as well. I'll do a separate video on returns, but you might be looking for a Chiron return in Aries. Some of you might be searching. And this Chiron and Aries generation might not be very assertive. At least the one born from the late 60s up until the late 70s. I'll post the dates in the description of the video. It might not be always so assertive. Now, the first chunk of them has Pluto in Virgo, but the most of them have Pluto in Libra. So people with Libra don't want to fight, don't want conflict. So then Chiron is in Aries, and there's this hesitancy to be assertive or defensive. Now, another thing about Aries, a planet working through the lens of Aries, is teasing and playfulness. So people with Chiron and Aries might also not get that. So if somebody makes a joke and you're wounded, and the person says, lighten up, it's not a big deal, I'm teasing you. But you feel that sting deep inside because your ability to roll, this would be a fundamental idea here, your ability to roll with Aries playfulness is wounded. Like you're hypersensitive to how others are going to see you and respond to you and treat you. So you might, related to that, you might see threats around you where there are no threats. You might not be able to understand people's, assertive energies as not threats. So that's one of the keys to Chiron and Aries. And what that will do is affect how you, like I said, assert yourself. Do you tell people who you are? Do you own who you are? Are you independent? Do you blaze a trail when you need to? These are Aries. These are qualities of a planet working through the lens of Aries. So you're not sure how you're going to affect other people. You're hypersensitive to how they seem to think you are. It really messes up the Aries dynamic, which needs to be announcing existence. A planet through the lens of Aries needs to announce existence. That phrase, I am. I have a joke about Libra, the opposite being, I think I know who I am, like to contrast Aries, I am. Libra, I think I know who I am because I'm kind of aware of how you seem to think I am. It's a very complex, muddied thing, and Chiron and Aries natally can actually kind of do that to people. Another thing about the teasing and being able to roll with competitiveness, people with Chiron and Aries may not want to compete, but they may not be sure how to respond when competition is called for. So I can just remember, for me, a pickup game with an ex-girlfriend's family and basketball, and I didn't know how to ease up on defense. And so they were like, what's wrong with him? Because I wasn't sure how to compete, how to roll with that. Because whatever it is, there's a wounding that I carry, I happen to have Chiron and Aries, about how I assert myself and how I deal with others' assertion. Now, this is also going to have to do, taking it a little further out of competition in sports into violence. And when you encounter, things that are where people are hurting each other or hurting you, how do you respond? The appropriate, healthy, Aries response is wounded too, because you're hypersensitive with Chiron and Aries natally to the energy of Aries type planets, to Mars energy. But a lot of it has to do with not taking things personally. That's a truth for all Chiron teachings, and rolling with things and listening to people instead of assuming that you're not safe or assuming that someone might hurt you or something like that. Like learning to be present. That's another thing for any planet in the sign of Aries. And when we get beyond the kind of wounded healer, apparent but false dichotomy of Chiron placements, or of all Chiron placements, we find that presence is the answer, and then we can roll with things and engage. And if you think about Mars, the kind of fire of Aries, people kind of responding to each other, because all Aries things have to do with response. You planet in Aries, you respond to your environment, you respond to a chemical urge, a biological, physical, neurological situation, you respond to your environment. The spark that Aries planets give off is based in feeling what I'm feeling or being where I am. And so when you're present with Chiron and Aries, you can roll with things and not take personally whatever happens. You do have to assert yourself, but recognize, again, that you're hypersensitive to how others respond to you when you do assert yourself. So stay tuned for the series of Chiron in the rest of the natal signs, and check out the intro videos, the energy management and the videos, and also the house videos. And check out the Chiron Natal Report at tdjacobs.com. That'll cover your house sign and aspects if it's retrograde, and if you're near your Chiron return, and also the transits and progressions to your Chiron and transits of Chiron to the rest of your natal chart. That's all at tdjacobs.com. Take care.